G'day there, everyone. Welcome to Travel and Sip, episode 6. This is a show where we give you a taste of the world. I'm joined by my good friend, of course, Ingrid. Hi there, Ingrid.
Hi, Kieran.
And we're off to just another fantastic location. Recently, we've been doing a few stops close to home, and this one is relatively close, probably our first overseas destination that we'll be traveling to soon, I think, Ingrid. But put us out of our misery. Tell us where we're traveling to today.
Yes, Kieran, today we are headed over to the state of Tasmania. So it is technically over the sea. So the Bass Strait lies between Victoria and Tasmania is the small island of Australia that lies just to the south of Victoria and Melbourne, which is where we live. So it's going to be open again for tourism to specific states in Australia as of next week, actually. So yes, not
Good
for
times.
us.
Not for us, but soon we'll certainly be able to travel again, and Tasmania might just be that first destination. So we'll find out a little bit more about Tassie. It's both of our favourites. But I guess I just wanted to start, Ingrid, with a little bit of did you know? Did you know, Ingrid, that Tasmania has some of the cleanest air in the world?
Wow.
It does. It's where it's situated, right at the bottom of Australia. It gets these in the Great Southern Ocean. Really, it gets these tremendous winds that come through, and with clean air. And it's always noted as one of the places on Earth with the cleanest air in the world. So a good place to be travelling to, I think, if you want a little bit of fresh air at the moment. So.
Actually, that reminds me, Kieran, of an ad that one of the Tasmanian brewing companies put out a few years ago about it having the cleanest water in the world. That they use to brew their beer. So
is that right? Well, I guess talking of things, Ingrid, that's probably a pretty good segue into what are we sipping on today? Because I, in fact, do have one of these beers, which is the James Bogues. Changing it up a bit today, felt a little bit like a beer, but. James Bogues and Cascade are two probably the most common breweries that you'll see around the place from Tasmania, and really a kind of this microcosm of the division between the north and the south of Tasmania. I feel very much a rivalry there. Bogues itself comes from Launceston, and a lot of their labels feature a very, very cool little place in Launceston called Cataract Gorge, which is right in the middle of town, and provides a lot of that water for Bogues to make their beautiful beers. So that's what I'm drinking. What about you, Ingrid?
So Kieran, today I am actually drinking. Can you see that? So I'm drinking a Pinot Noir from Tasmania, from a vineyard called Holm Oak, which is also in the north part of the country. It's north of Launceston in an area called Tamar Valley, which is a famous wine region in Tasmania. And in my opinion, I believe that Tasmania actually grows the best Pinot Noir in Australia. That is
big call, Ingrid.
It is a big call. There are some other great places to buy Pinot Noir in Australia, but I do think Tasmania does it best. I think that cool climate that they have there just provides those perfect conditions for the Pinot Noir I like to drink as well. So, so very fruity Pinot Noir. So that's what I have for today. And I have actually been to this vineyard as well. So it's a husband and wife team. So the wife is the winemaker and the husband is a viticulturist. So they run it together. Right up in the northern part of the Tamar Valley, so right up the top.
Beautiful. Well,
cheers, Kieran.
Cheers to you. All right, Ingrid. Well, I guess we should really start off by getting here and getting around Tassie. There's a few ways you can. It's obviously, as we've mentioned, it's an island. I think it's the 26th. I should have done this as a did you know, but I was reading it's the 26th. Largest island in the world, around the same size as the Republic of Ireland and Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, or Sri Lanka. So it's pretty decent size. So tell me, how do you usually get to Tasmania? How are you travelling around the island?
Yeah, so usually I fly, but you do actually have the option as well from Melbourne that you can take a ferry called Spirit of Tasmania, which operates overnight and in the summer season, both during the day and overnight during peak season. So that is a car ferry. So if you want to take your own car over to Tasmania, you do have that option. But most people do fly, and you can get flights from most of the major cities in Australia. Not all are direct. Not all cities have direct flights to Tassie. Sometimes you have to go via other ports. So generally, Melbourne has the most flights direct to Tassie. Some of the other states only have a couple of flights a day that are direct to Tasmania. And as I said, some of them you have to go via Melbourne to get to Tassie. So so it's fairly pretty much a fly-in destination if you want to do it quickly, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I heard the Spirit is moving to leave instead of from Port Melbourne, from Geelong soon-ish. I don't know if that's this year or something like that, but basically it goes into Devonport, right in the you can see on the map here, right in the central area. So it goes from Port Melbourne at the moment, but I think soon from Geelong down there, which is interesting. But you see people packing their camper vans and or taking their motorbikes, all that sort of stuff. So it's a really good way if you've got some good touring equipment that you want to bring over. Otherwise, I'm like you, Ingrid. I tend to just fly in and hire a car and away you go. Really great to have a car because there's some great drives. The one thing you do unfortunately have to be careful of is driving at night time. There's a lot of wildlife in Tassie, and you just got to be careful there, don't you? But look, I guess a couple of things to note in Tasmania, going back to my did you know kind of things here, is that it's had quite a bit of history here. The Aboriginal settlement's been there for, again, tens of thousands of years, like we mentioned with most of these places in Australia. And the Aboriginal name for Tassie is Trawuna or Trawina. It was, I guess, first seen by Europeans by Abel Tasman, and he actually named it. Do you know what it is, Ingrid?
Yes, Van Diemen's Land.
Diemen's Land, he called it. But in 1856, it was then changed to Tasmania to reflect Abel Tasman, who sailed through there. And it's actually home to some very famous people. But we were talking about this, Ingrid, and this is the did you know that you came up with. So I'll let you give this one. But who do you think is the most famous person to come out of Tasmania?
Well, I definitely think it would have to be Crown Princess of Denmark, Princess Mary.
And I think she was down from Hobart. I think that's her, around her hometown, Sandy Bay or somewhere like that. So yeah, some famous people, but none more famous, arguably, than Princess Mary for sure. So good way to start. Now, Ingrid, we've both travelled to Tassie a few times, but let's talk about some of the places to see. Where should we start? Maybe we start up at the Nut, up in Stanley. Talk to us about the Northwest.
Yeah, so I love the Northwest because it's probably an area that not as many tourists will necessarily get to on their first or perhaps even second trip in Tasmania. If they don't have time to see everything, people tend to focus on Launceston and Hobart being the two major towns, and then possibly the East Coast because it's quite famous, well known, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But not as many people actually have been to the Northwest Coast. So Stanley, which is what this photo is taken of, looking down at the town of Stanley, and the Nut, which is the name of that hill in the background. It's about 150 metres high, and you can walk up it or take a chairlift up it, and it gives you some great views over the town. I think it's an old ancient volcanic rock that formed there. And to be honest, there's a bit of contention around where the name came from, so I'm actually not entirely sure what the accurate fact is. So I'm not going to say. But yeah, there's a few different reasons that people say it's called the Nut. So, but yeah, that is what it's known as in town, and it's a great old little town, Stanley. I think have you been there as well? Yeah,
well, my brother actually lived in Stanley for a few years, so visited Stanley a couple of times. But it's such a quaint little place, and they even make their scones in Stanley to look like the nut. I think that's one memory I have of Stanley.
Really, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it looks like a big schonar if you sort of use your imagination, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that.
Now, Stanley is, I guess, in that northwest, and one of the most famous attractions or places to see in Tassie is this one here, which is not too far away, really, and we're talking about Cradle Mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, so Cradle Mountain's an amazing place. You can see there exactly why it's called Cradle Mountain. It looks like a cradle right in the mountain there, so that's where it got its name from. And I think it's called Dove Lake, the lake at the bottom there.
It is.
You can actually walk around that. Yeah.
You can. And one thing, I think we might have a picture of you just up the top there looking out over Dove Lake, but it's a lovely walk just around that lake, and you get breathtaking views. And if for those who are a bit more adventurous, there is also I think it's a 7-day hike you can do through the national park. It's the Cradle Mountain Lake St Clair National Park, and they have a walking track there, one that many people do, probably more in your sort of shoulder seasons where it's not too cold or too hot, and you can do that 7-day walk, which it's always been on my list, Ingrid, but haven't quite got there yet. But I'm sure one day we will.
The Overland. A couple of my friends have done it before, and they said it was absolutely fantastic. So they absolutely loved it, and they're avid walkers and hikers. So really good experience.
Beautiful. Now, so moving on. Now, this looks like a bit of fun. Where are you sliding to or from, Ingrid?
So this is the Dismal Swamp, which is also in northwest. And
a very exciting name.
I know. It's called the Tarkeen Forest Adventure. So this is the slide they've got. It's 110 metres down from the top down into the jungle below, the forest floor. And there's some great boardwalk walks around the forest below as well. So it's a tourist attraction that was built a number of years ago, but it's a bit of fun. It probably is a little bit on the expensive side, I guess, to get in, but it's very cheap to ride the slide and good fun. So good for families just to get around and do something different in that northwest region. And it is very far over to the western side, almost on the west coast, actually. So yeah.
Crazy.
Great.
Looks like good fun. I wonder how many people do actually sit up. They probably don't forget it if they do, I'm sure.
No.
And you tell me this one as well. This could be anywhere of the most beautiful beaches in the world. But where are you here taking a walk on the sand?
Yeah, so I'm actually just outside of Stanley. This photo was taken on that northwest coastline. So absolutely beautiful. I think a lot of people only think of the northeast or the east coast of beautiful beaches of Tasmania, which granted, it does have amazing beaches up there, really white sand in those areas. But the beaches in the northwest are absolutely stunning as well. And I was there, I think this was February, I'm going to say. So you can see I'm wearing a skirt and a t-shirt there. So it was reasonably warm as well. So Tasmania doesn't get as hot as the rest of Australia either. So you do have those beautiful days compared to some other parts of Australia, which can be unbearably hot in summer.
Beautiful. And, Tasmania, we talked about the clean air and these sort of things, but it also has quite a bit of wildlife. This little fella is someone you'll only ever see in Tassie. And he's not, he was the inspiration for a cartoon character. But look, these guys they're just cute, aren't they? These Tassie Devils.
They are. They're adorable. This one's having a little bath. No, I love it. I mean, I'm sure you would have gone and seen them as well, Kieran. There's so many different wildlife sanctuaries in Tasmania. They're an endangered species now. Yeah. They've been attacked for many years by a virus that they don't have a cure for. So they're trying through breeding programs to find a way to stop the virus from spreading and to boost up the population again of the Tassie Devils, because like you said, they're the only place in the world that they exist, and they're very adorably cute to look at, but you wouldn't want to get too close.
No, not too cute when they open their mouth either. They're
exactly.
like most marsupials, they tend to give a hell of a cry, and
they do.
And I believe that Tassie Devils, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're the only one of the only carnivorous marsupials out there. Is that what you've heard?
Yeah, I have heard something similar to that. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I have heard similar. So it probably is correct if we've both heard that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
watch out. And some other cute wildlife here. What's this one, Ingrid?
Yeah, so this is actually a little wallaby, so these guys are everywhere, and I think Kieran said it at the start. I think one thing I would say to anybody who travels in Tasmania, be really careful if you're traveling at night, because these little guys are absolutely adorable, and they are all over the state, and they very easily and very often get hit by cars, especially at dusk, dawn and night. So you do have to be really careful, because there's a lot of unfortunate wildlife that gets killed on the roads in Tasmania. It's really sad to see, to be honest. So this little guy's a wallaby, but there's also these little fellas. I was hoping I might be able to find one of my photos, because I do have a photo of one, but I couldn't find it for this. But potoroos, which are a more miniature version of a wallaby, and very adorable. And you can see quite a lot of them around the Cradle Mountain area. So this guy also was in the Cradle Mountain area. That's where I took this photo.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And so you mentioned a lot the East Coast and the beauty of the East Coast. And this one to me looks like an East Coast picture. Where are you here, Ingrid?
Yeah, this is Wineglass Bay. So absolutely stunningly beautiful. Have you been there, Kieran?
I've not travelled the East Coast. No, it's definitely a high priority. Wineglass Bay, Freycinet National Park, obviously a part of that sort of area. It's really a road trip. I think when I've done most of my road trips, I've gone from north to south quickly and gone straight down the centre of the island. But really, next time I think it'll be taking a few days out and travelling the coastal route.
It's definitely worthwhile. It is absolutely stunning, as you can see. Blue water, white sand beaches. You can look down from the top of this. So this is a lookout that you can take. So a walk through Freycinet National Park. You can also go all the way down into the bay as well. You can do boat trips that take you around into Wineglass Bay too. So there's a lot of different options there. There's some beautiful eco resorts and some luxury resorts in that area now as well. Great B&Bs. Some fabulous places to stay actually on the East Coast in that area. Freycinet National Park and Swansea, which is the town nearby. Bicheno as well, which is quite close. Some great little towns.
And there's a lot of French names down the East Coast, aren't there? There must be a little bit of French history. Did you catch any of that when you were travelling that area?
No, I didn't actually, if I think about it. I don't recall anything that sticks out in my mind in terms of being French, other than the names. They do sound a bit French, don't they?
Maybe we'll do a part 2 on that side of things, Ingrid, because I don't know enough about it myself.
Yeah.
But look, I guess we've travelled the north and the west, and now we head down to the south to the capital of Tasmania, Hobart, and this is a view from Mount Wellington, which looms over the city. It's probably one of the most recognisable mountains in Australia, I think, or capital city shots. And the thing I always note about Hobart is that you just never get a bad view of Hobart from anywhere. It is the Derwent River running through the centre of town, but wherever you are, you have these beautiful views, and this is just one of them. The thing I remember about Mount Wellington is snow, and I think this was actually in summertime. So you can go from 20 degrees down or so down at the bottom, and up the top you'll get snow. So it's a little bit of a drive up, and I think after this, the time before this, I'd gone up this picture. I obviously rugged up for this one. I think I went up in a t-shirt and shorts and didn't last too long up the top. So I learnt my lesson on that one. But you do. It's definitely worth the drive up because you just get stunning views.
Yeah.
And the other thing Hobart is quite famous for is the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. Ingrid, are you an avid sailing fan?
I'm actually not, Kieran. I've to be honest, so I lived in Sydney for a few years, and I always thought about, I'll go down and watch the start and all that sort of thing, but I never got around to it. I've just, to be honest, I don't understand it, so I'm probably quite ignorant in that regard, and just don't understand how it all works and how the sport works. So, looks amazing, and I think that the skills they have to go down the Bass Strait and across the Bass Strait is absolutely incredible. I do remember back quite a long time ago now, there were even people that died trying to be part of the race as well. So I know it's extremely dangerous too. So yeah, definitely.
Well, it's no mean feat, and I think everywhere the race starts on Boxing Day each year, and generally takes some of the faster ships 2.5-3 days to make the trip. Some other boats will take around about a week, I think, thereabouts, to make the journey. This is Wild Oats 11, who's won it on a few occasions, and won line honours. You always get line honours, and then you get a winner because it's a handicap event. So, so if your boat's a little bit bigger, you need to do it in a faster time, that sort of stuff. So you'll usually find quite often that the boat that gets across the line first isn't the one that actually wins the overall tournament, but wins line honours. But always good if you're around Tasmania at Christmas time, Christmas, New Year. It's always a lovely thing to go and see these beautiful boats that come into Constitution Dock there. Another thing, I mentioned the divide between north and south when it came to beer. This is the south. Cascade is the south. Hobart's brewery. And you can do a tour of the Cascade Brewery. It's this beautiful. Actually, it's a little bit scary looking at that photo. The building. It's quite ominous.
It looks like a house.
It does, doesn't it? But look, it's a great little tour, and you can you sort of get in there. You see the inner workings, the production line, all those sort of things, how beer's made, and again they have beautiful water. So Cascade and beautiful grounds. So you can just sit out there if it's a nice afternoon and enjoy a beer in the gardens, and definitely, there's a few things to do in and around Hobart, and this was one of my favourite last time I was there. Talking of things to do, and we don't have a photo, Ingrid, but I know you're a big art fan, and we can't really move on from Hobart without talking about Mona, the Museum of Old and New Art. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Old and New Art. I haven't done a Mona trip, but tell me your impression of Mona.
Oh, I love Mona. I mean, it's confronting in parts. The guy that runs it is privately owned, and he's a really interesting character in terms of how he looks at art. He basically wanted to build Mona around things that he enjoyed and what he liked in terms of the art world. So yeah, you get there's some really confronting things, quite unappealing things to look at, but quite amazing as well. So I love it. It's all underground, so you actually go down these huge winding staircases to get down into where it starts, and then you make your way through the museum from there. I've actually been 3 times, I think, 3 or 4 times. And they've got a standard exhibition that is the same all the time, but then they have different exhibitions that come through at different parts of the year. They usually have, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 that rotate through each year. So there's always something different to see every time you go, and you always see something different even in the permanent exhibition. When you go, second and third time, you've got the option to drive out there, or you can also do the full, experience, as they call it, the Mona experience, which is take the ferry out there, and you go on this little cruise down the Derwent River that'll take you out there, and you enjoy a drink on board, and then get the full experience. There's some beautiful restaurants out in the grounds as well. They actually make their own beer as well. Mona beer, yes. I can't remember I've gone blank on the name right now. It starts with M as well, and that's terrible because I've drunk it a lot, but I can't remember.
Maybe too much, Ingrid.
Yeah, possibly. But no, it's great. And they've got some wine out there as well. I think they're involved in making their own wine. So they've made it this real tourist attraction. And to be honest, they've put Hobart on the map for, I think, international tourism, Mona. So, yeah, it's made a huge difference to driving international tourism to Tasmania.
Absolutely, because I think for a long time Tassie was there was a lot of colonial stuff, and there's the nature and the wildlife, and this kind of just gives another dimension to the state in terms of its art scene, I guess. No doubt it's always been there, but this is now, I think, probably the biggest attraction in Tasmania, arguably. Have to get some stats on that, but it's very, very popular.
Yeah, it is.
Hobart's a lovely city. It is full of colonial buildings and these sort of things. Salamanca Market on a Saturday is a must do for sure. Wander down the street there. Great food, great wine, the whole lot. Hobart, you could easily spend a few days there and just eat and drink and sit and watch the world go by quite easily. I think there's also the Taste of Tassie festival they have on around that Christmas time. So Christmas is a really great time. There's a lot going on Christmas and New Year in Hobart. So that tends to be my favourite time to go. And also out of Hobart, you have a number of day trips. Probably. One of the most famous ones would be to Port Arthur, the old convict area. But a couple other places to note. One we have here, Ingrid, which is Richmond. And explain this photo. What are we looking at? Because we're looking at something quite special here, aren't we?
Yeah. So this is the oldest bridge in Australia, in Richmond, Tasmania. So yeah, that's what Richmond's claim to fame is. And it's a beautiful old bridge, and it's a gorgeous little old town, old colonial town, beautiful buildings, great place to have a Devonshire tea, enjoy some scones and a cup of tea or coffee.
Some really good sweet shops, I think, in Richmond. They have some beautiful chocolate and boiled lollies and these sort of wonderful sort of sweets for the sweet tooth. That's right.
Australian sweet.
Exactly, and I think this bridge was built by the convicts. I think that's kind of its heritage, isn't it? This is a sort of area around Hobart where you will see a lot of colonial buildings. And a lot of the labour was convict labour back in the 1800s. Another one of my favourite ones outside of Hobart is the southwest. And here we have the Tarhoon Airwalk, which is a treetop walk. And I'm just going to go quickly to my last Did You Know, Ingrid. My question here is, did you know that Tasmania is home to some of the oldest trees in the world? Now, these trees are in this region. It's the Huon pine trees. They're very, very slow growing. And, you know, a 20-metre tree could be hundreds of years old, that sort of thing. So these are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, a lot of these trees. And this airwalk is a fantastic thing to do, and recently reopened after being closed for quite a number of years due to some pretty savage bushfires in the area a few years back. Have you travelled much to the southwest yourself, Ingrid?
No, I haven't, Kieran. I think I went down there as a kid, the first time I ever went to Tasmania with my family, but I actually don't remember all the specifics of where we went. I believe we did go down into the southwest, but outside of that time, I've only really been down to the Huon Valley. I haven't really been any further south of that. So it's definitely on my list, actually, to head down into the southwest and also the far west coast of Tasmania. They're probably the two regions and that area in between there, which is all of those beautiful old forests that I haven't been to before in Tassie. So that's definitely next on my next trip list.
Beautiful. So that's probably our little tour of Tassie for today. Some of our favourite places that we've been and things that we've seen. But it really does just scrape the surface of Tasmania. Question without notice, Ingrid, but give me 3 words you'd use to describe Tasmania to you.
Oh, wow.
Well, wow could be one of them, couldn't it? Because
wow could probably be one. I was going to say probably beautiful, delicious, and friendly. I love the people in Tasmania. I've always had fantastic experiences with locals in Tassie. They're always so warm and welcoming. I actually don't know how many times I've been there, which you would know, Kieran, that I used to go down there for work 4 or 5 times a year for a week at a time, and I would travel around the state basically by car. So, doing that, and then I'd tack on holidays or I'd go back for a holiday because I just fell in love with the state so much. I always said if I didn't live in Melbourne, I'd probably live in Tassie, but these days I think I hate the cold too much, so I'm not sure I could do it, but it's great.
That's fair enough. And I think to me, Tassie, it's just this wonderful mix of old, of new, of ancient, of wildlife. There's some really rugged parts of the state, but also some really luxurious parts. And as you say, the food and wine scene. We probably need to do a follow-up episode, Ingrid, just on the food and wine of Tasmania. I would think, because it is vast and delicious produce that you get from Tasmania. So maybe we'll write that one down and revisit that in a few weeks' time.
Definitely. Well, for now, Kieran, drink well and travel often.
Until next time, Ingrid, we'll
Cheers.
Cheers.